This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Yes, I am back, and that means it's time for another season. Well, almost another preseason. Well, it's actually training camp. Maybe it's kind of all of the above. What does it matter? Everything is started for the Blue Jackets, and we are going to start to see just exactly what the 2019-2020 Blue Jackets are going to be. Saw a little bit of it here in the last couple of days over the weekend at the Ohio Health Ice House. We're going to see much more of it as the preseason games begin tomorrow night at Nationwide Arena against the Buffalo Sabres. But first, before I get into your questions, because this is a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30 presented by Telhio Credit Union, before I get to your questions, I want to lay a couple of things out. I just want to explain to you how it's going to go here over the course of the next couple of weeks for this show and what I plan on doing. Actually, not just the next couple of weeks. Let me just lay it all right out there for you, okay? Normally, in past years, I have not started doing this podcast until the season actually started. But this year, with there being so many questions, so many battles in training camp, so many unknowns with this Blue Jackets team, this year, I'm doing it differently, obviously. That's why I'm talking to you right now. But the way this is going to work is during training camp, I will do a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30 every week. And that is the only show that I will do. I will do it on Mondays. I will make sure that it gets out early for you. I'll make sure that you have it to kind of take in throughout the course of the day. Then also, again, during training camp, Jody Shelley and I are doing the Inside Edge on 97.1 The Fan on Wednesdays. The show airs at 9 o'clock on Wednesday nights. It's just that's not what it's going to be during the regular season. It's kind of a scheduling snafu. It's something extra that's been thrown in. We, again, have worked out a way to get you more content. I know the time is not ideal, but the beauty of radio in the 21st century is everything turns into a podcast. So the Inside Edge will also be posted as a podcast after it's over. So that'll give you 2 shows a week to get you through the next couple of weeks. I should tell you, I guess, that if there is a Wednesday preseason game, and I know there is one, that we won't do a show that week. But like this week, case in point, the games are Tuesday and Thursday. There will be a Wednesday show that we'll have for you. So that'll give you 2 shows a week to get through training camp. And then when we get to the regular season, based on the feedback that I got from you over the summer when I did a Twitter poll and people I've talked to and podcast researchers, if you will, the initial plan is to go with CBJ in 30 2 days a week. I'll always do it on Mondays. I have to pick the other day to do that 2 days a week. The Inside Edge will also post, so that'll give you 3 shows a week. Now, as we get later in the season and things become more important and the Blue Jackets go back to the playoffs and we get to the playoffs, we'll be back to doing it 5 days a week, just like I've done it in the past, okay? So that's the initial plan. That's what I'm looking at doing, and as with every plan, there is an asterisk up there, and that means it's subject to change. So it could change at any time. If the team is overperforming, underperforming, if there's more demand, there's a lot of different things that I can do to alter the schedules. But I just wanted to lay it out there for you right off the bat, right in day one, what the thought process was, what I think is going to be best as we move ahead this season and following this team, and what's best for you. If you disagree with me, that's fine, because you can tell me anytime just by going to Twitter at BobbyMacSports. Feel free to communicate with me right there. You want to email me about it, you can email me at bobbymac@bluejackets.com. That's easy to do as well. Your feedback is welcomed by me. I have no problem with it. I mean, this show is for you. I do it for you. And if there's something that you want to see or hear that you're not seeing or hearing, or if there's something that you're seeing or hearing too much of, whatever, I'll take it all into consideration. It may or may not change. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'll take it into consideration. I have no problem with that. So I think that's kind of going to be the theme of the whole season. I mean, with everything here, we're just going to kind of take it as it comes. We're going to see what it is, and that's what we're doing with the team, too. Watching the scrimmages over the weekend, that was fun. There were some good things there were mostly good things. In fact, I can't even pick out bad things in those scrimmages. There's nothing that I'm going to come out and say, well, this should have happened and this guy didn't look good and that guy didn't look good, because they did. They all look good. They all looked like they're in shape. They all look like they're ready to go. They all look like they are supposed to look, and that's a good thing. It would be a big problem if a lot of guys came in and didn't look like they were supposed to look. So it was good. The last couple of days have been good. And remember, the players have been exhausted when they were in those scrimmages. Hey, kudos to you for packing the ice house on Saturday morning. And there's a lot to be said for that, by the way. That is a college football Saturday, and that place was packed. I mean, packed. And I've seen it busy before. In the 10 years that I've been here, I've seen it busy. But I really think that what I saw on Saturday was just the top of the list as far as biggest crowds in the ice house. And it's the excitement that has carried over from last year. And you know why it's good to see? It's good to see for me, so I can imagine what it's like for the players. I'm sure it's really good to see for them, because with all of the question marks with this team, with all of the departures and only one arrival, with some of your key players deciding to go somewhere else, there can be a lot of questions. And we all have a lot of questions. But the fact that you showed up and you packed the building like you did, I think that says a couple of things. I think it says to the players that we're with you. We believe in you. We know that the guys that are here want to be here, and we love that, and we're backing that every step of the way. No question about it. So I think that message was loud and clear. And the other thing is that it's a hockey town. And I hate talking about that because I've always thought it is. I've always thought it's just been waiting for something. And we've started in the last couple of years to see that little bit of something. There's still a long way to go. John Tortorella will be the first guy to tell you that. But there's no question about the excitement, about the loyalty of the fan base, and all that stuff. No question about it. When you have events like that and people show up in droves like you did on Saturday. So thanks. I really, to get things started like that, how can you not be excited? Got to be excited. And I'm excited to start answering your questions, because that's what I do here every week on the Monday Mailbag. And you can always send me your questions on Twitter at BobbyMacSports, as I said earlier. So let's just get right to it and see who's going to get the very first question of the year. And it's going to be Jonathan Zygmunt, who says, is there any chance that Jarmo would decide to trade for bad contracts to get second or third round picks? We have cap space and missing picks from last year's trades. Jonathan, I don't see that. I don't see him taking on bad contracts to get those picks. Look, we've talked about the picks. We talked about this last year at the trade deadline, and Jarmo said it. I know he's a guy that values picks tremendously. There's no doubt about it. I think part of the deal of not re-signing Matt Duchene was having to give up another first-round pick to the Ottawa Senators. That was part of it. The fact that the price got driven through the roof was the bigger part of it, I think. But the draft pick did make a difference. That was an added cost that they weren't willing to pay. But I wouldn't take on bad contracts here. You might have that space now, but why eat it up with a bad contract? You might need that money and want that money to go out and get somebody that's going to help you. And I would rather have somebody that's going to come in and help than have a second-round pick in next June's draft, quite frankly, because who knows what those picks turn into. Sometimes they turn into gold. Sometimes they turn into dust. So I would rather have the financial flexibility to go out and get somebody who is going to help now, if it was me. Now, but I see Jarmo, he's a responsible guy. I don't see him. That's almost like, to me, as you ask that question, it's almost like taking too big of a risk for a second-round pick that you don't even know what that person's going to be. And there are other ways to get those picks back, by the way, instead of taking on bad contracts. How about making a trade? You're deep on your blue line. Maybe somewhere along the line you make a trade to get picks back, maybe a player in picks, whatever. So I wouldn't take on anything bad, especially not early, for sure. The next question is, and these first two, I think, really get me going to start the season. Sarah has the next question, and she says, am I the only one who wishes we would have kept Brandon Saad instead of acquiring Artemi Panarin? There's more to this question, but I can stop right there, Sarah, and say, yes, I think you are. I think you're the only one. And if you're not, I don't know who the others are. But I'll continue with the question. Sarah says, I feel the chemistry was so much better. I thought it was a bad idea from the jump. I know the chapter is over, but I'm just curious. I disagree. I don't think the chemistry was good with Brandon Saad. I don't think it was going to get any better with Brandon Saad. John Tortorella wanted more out of Brandon Saad. He said this numerous times that Saad was a guy that was gifted, and he had gotten so much in his first couple of years in the NHL, winning a pair of Stanley Cups with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he felt that now it was time for him to give back. And I don't think, personally, that Brandon Saad was a hard enough worker for John Tortorella. We're talking about a guy that got scratched during the playoffs or got benched during the playoffs. Maybe he didn't get scratched, but he got benched, whatever it was. He got benched, right? And it was against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it was in Pittsburgh, and he's from Pittsburgh. That was the clear-cut sign that this is not going to work. This is just not going to work. I think the guys like Brandon Saad, of course, but there was an issue there. There was a chemistry thing there. The chemistry with Artemi Panarin was 100 times better than with Brandon Saad. And that's not a knock on Brandon, and a good guy and all that. Sometimes it just works one place, it doesn't work another place. And, there were always the rumors that maybe he would rather still be in Chicago than be in Columbus. So that falls into the same boat of Panarin wanting to be in New York instead of Columbus. So anyway, no, I don't think that was not a bad move. That was a terrific move. That was a great move. And even though Saad had the long contract, I just can't see that it would have all worked out anyway. Susie Q 4160 says, why did Marcus Nudavara not play in the scrimmage games on Saturday? He left the ice after practice not to return. Is he okay? I was told he's ill. He's just sick, not feeling well. So that's why he didn't play Saturday or Sunday in the scrimmage games. So hopefully he gets healthy soon and gets back on the ice, because he's going to be a big part of whatever happens here. Kevin Miller says, I'm so sick of hearing about what the Blue Jackets lost this offseason, so tell me who and or what you're most excited about for the upcoming season. I'm just excited about seeing what happens. I'm just excited about seeing how guys rise to the challenge, or if they don't rise to the challenge and they let somebody else pass them on the way to that challenge. That's really what I'm most excited about. I think, there are two ways to look at it. You can look at it with the woe is me type attitude, or you can look at it like this is a new chapter. You've got a lot of the same faces, but yet this is still a new chapter in this organization. It is still something new and different, and it starts in the goal. You look in goal, and you're not going to see the guy you've seen there for the last 6 or 7 years being a star. So it's intriguing to me to see how all of this stuff works out. Speaking of the superstar goalie, Columbus Blue Jacket says, is it true that some members of the team, without mentioning names, were tired of Bobrovsky and ready to help him pack his bags? I don't know. If that's true, I have no idea. I've never got that inclination. They love the guy. I mean, the guy was a 2-time Vezina winner. The guy was the backbone of this team for more than half a decade, gained great respect through his work habits, and whatever the stuff that went on last year, the meetings, the discussions, all the things that have been written about and talked about and all that stuff, I'm sure that was maddening for everybody involved, including him. I'm sure it was maddening. So, but I wouldn't say that anybody was ready to help him pack up and get out of here, and I think they will I think he'll still have a good relationship with his teammates, just that he's on another team, and now they can't wait to put pucks behind him at every given opportunity. Next tweet coming from Eric Federer. Eric says, there are so many exciting storylines going into the season. Corpy versus Elvis in the net. Will the young guys deliver like Texier, Gavrikov, Bemstrom? Will Josh Anderson and Oliver Bjorkstrand keep improving? Does Wenberg figure it out? Which one is the most pivotal for the season? Eric, I think the most pivotal without question is the goaltenders, because of what I was just saying. You had a guy that was a superstar, and now he's gone. He was a guy that you relied upon all the time. The safe as death mantra that John Tortorella went with, he was able to go with because he had a goaltender that could make up for a lot of mistakes. You could riverboat gamble as a defenseman down at one end. Your goalie would bail you out on a breakout or on a breakaway if there was a mistake on the other end. Simple as that. So the goaltending situation is where it starts and ends for me. Is somebody going to win that job outright? Is it going to be shared? Is the structure of the team going to be different? I think that is. I think it's going to be a different system. I think it's going to be a more defensive-oriented system. I think it's going to be a more boring system. Look what the Blue Jackets did in the playoffs. Look what they did to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. And I don't mean just eliminating them in 4 games. They took a high-flying, high-octane team, and they shut it down. And how did they do that? With better structure, harder work, better team defense. That is how they are going to have to play every night if they want to get back to the playoffs this year. There is no Artemi Panarin. There is no superstar to dangle on one end of the ice and do all these spectacular things. It's going to be group effort, team effort. And I think as the Blue Jackets became more skilled over the past couple of years, they got away from their identity to an extent, and that is that hard work. That is the grinding. That is the punishing hits. That is being a team that is hard to play against. And even, you bring in Matt Duchene. He's not exactly a guy that you think of as a big hit, grinder, great defensive guy. Not at all. You don't bring him in for that. You bring him in to score goals. You bring him in to win faceoffs. You bring him in to be good on the power play, all those things. So they got away from it, and they've got to get back to it. When this run of going to the playoffs started, one of the biggest compliments that the Blue Jackets had thrown their way every night was they are hard to play against. That is a typical John Tortorella team. Man, I hate playing against those guys. That was a common theme from opposing players throughout the league. And I think last year those comments weren't coming. They didn't come until the playoffs, and they did it against Tampa. They frustrated the heck out of them. They eliminated them. They shocked the world, and then they played Boston, and the difference was Boston already plays that way. Boston was ready for it. They had already seen it, and they were a little bit better at it. So that was the difference in that. But to me, the goaltending situation is where it's at. I haven't talked to Elvis yet, but I did talk to Jonas Korpisalo for a couple of minutes yesterday. He's excited. He is really looking forward to having this chance to be the man. He's been here for 3 years as the backup. That is not an easy job. I think it's the hardest job in sports, actually, backing up a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, knowing you're not going to play ever. And he did it, and he didn't complain about it one bit. And when he got his chances, he played well in spurts and stretches. Now he's going to have the chance to play almost every day. John Tortorella knows him much more than he knows Elvis. So that gives him an edge, whether he looks at it like that or not. And he tried to downplay that when I asked him. But he knows what the opportunity is here, and he's excited about it. And I'm excited for him. I mean, I know him. He's been here. He's a great guy. He's got a very dry sense of humor. He's funny. He's a great teammate. His teammates love him. I think a lot of them will be rooting for him. Not that they'll root against the other guy. They're going to root for both of them. And by the way, they will love who can ever do the job. And if that's both of them, that's great. Because you saw the New York Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes both not only get into the playoffs, but win playoff rounds last year after basically splitting their goaltenders for the entire season. So if you have the right guys, it's possible. But Eric, that's a long answer to your question, which to me is the answers begin and end with the goaltending. And they could have done a lot of things. They could have gotten an experienced guy. They feel they've got the right young guys, and they want them to play. They don't want to take away their ice time, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it because there hasn't been a single game played yet. If everything starts to falter, then maybe you have to readdress that. But, as of right now, I'm okay with that. These guys, even Veni Vivalainen, who's going to be in Cleveland, highly skilled and accomplish great things over in Europe. So, let the kids play. Let's see what they can do. But that's the most important position for sure. And one more thing and I've gone too long on this anyway, but look, you don't need a $10 million a year goaltender to win a Stanley Cup. You don't need a Vezina winning goaltender to win the Stanley Cup. Look what the Blues did last year. Their guy was in the American Hockey League at the start of the year. and then Binnington/Winnington, as he was called, got to the NHL and took the league by storm, won a Stanley Cup. You see what I'm saying? If you have the right guy, it doesn't matter. Or guys, it doesn't matter. Rob the Nerd says, between Anderson, Bjorkstrand, and Texier, who do you think will have the best season offensively this year? I think it's going to be Oliver Bjorkstrand. I think it is going to be Bjorkstrand's year to shine. I've thought that before. It hasn't happened, but the way that he finished last year, putting the puck in the net, I think that's going to carry over to this year. I think he is going to be, and look, if he lives up to his full potential, we talk about Wenberg in this all the time. Well, let's talk about Bjorkstrand, notoriously slow starter. If he can get the puck in the net early and often, then the Blue Jackets will not miss some of those other guys as much. Let me just put it that way. Won't miss them as much. Kyle says, how do you think the new goaltending will affect the defense? Excited for another great season on the ice and another great season of CBJ in 30. See you on opening night. Thank you, Kyle. Again, I think the D will have to be more responsible. They'll have to be more stay-at-home. I think they're going to spend more time around that goaltender to make sure that they bail him out. Alex Nuttall says, do you think that after seeing the games in Traverse City, the practices and the scrimmages, that our fans have more faith in our depth at goaltender? It's been a turnoff for most, but I feel we have solid goalies with that consistent work. Corpy can be a stud. Yeah, Alex, like I was saying, and I didn't go to Traverse City, but just watching the practices and the scrimmages, I think the fans, yes, I do. I think it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment for all of us, but I think that people have faith in the guys that the management has faith in as well. Tyler Ratterer says, where in the lines do you think Nyquist or Gustav, let's try it again. Where in the lines do you think Gustav Nyquist is mostly to get slotted? Do you think he's going to be a top-line winger by opening night or on a second line with Wenberg and Bjorkstrand? I'll answer that after I tag this question along with it from Cam, who says, do you foresee a future with Texier as the winger beside Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cam Atkinson, or will Nyquist be on that side? I put him together because of this. John Tortorella has already said that he is looking at putting Nick Foligno on that wing with Dubois and Atkinson. Really? You don't say. Hold the phone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tortorella says that in August and September, okay? He wants to put Nyquist with Wenberg and see if the two Swedes can get things going. I understand that, totally get it, played together in the World Championships, all that stuff, okay. I get it, and maybe that will work. Maybe it will work. But there's a couple of things. Number one, Nyquist, if Foligno falters during the preseason, if he is put in that spot, Nyquist certainly can go there and do that. However, if you look at the teams, the way they're broken up in the scrimmages in the last couple of days, you've got a team that has a line of Pierre-Luc Dubois in the middle, Cam Atkinson on the right, Alexander Texier on the left. I don't think that was done by accident. And I'm not saying Nick Foligno won't start on that wing at the beginning of the regular season. But what I am saying is they're looking at it now. They want to see how Texier reacts with it now. And remember, it's also been said if Wenberg struggles, Texier can go to the middle and play center because they feel he'll eventually do that. But if Wenberg's not struggling, don't be surprised if Texier gets some looks on that wing during the preseason. That would not shock me at all because I think they want to see it. And I'll be honest with you, I love Nick Foligno, but if Alexander Texier is going to be the talented offensive forward that they say he's going to be, he can probably flourish a little bit more on the left side with guys like Dubois and Atkinson. David Lytle. David says, why don't teams make a huge offer to restricted free agents such as Mitch Marner? He's obviously worth big-time money. If their own team matches, you've at least made them spend a lot of money. Is there a downside to making an offer? Thanks, and it's great to be talking hockey again. Well, thanks, David. General managers, I believe, think that there is a downside. The biggest downside being if I offer sheet somebody and I don't get them and I try to drive into somebody's salary cap, they're going to come back and do it to me at some point. I think that's one of the unwritten, unsaid fears that general managers have. But as far as why don't you make a huge offer to Mitch Marner, he got a huge offer from the Leafs. I mean, the Leafs did it to themselves, right? They just gave him 6 years at $11 million a year. They have, 4 guys making $40+ million? Now, how do you think that's going to affect them down the road? I mean, and probably not that far down the road when it comes to the salary cap. Yeah, the salary cap's going up, but if you got half of it tied up in just a handful of players, then you're going to have to make adjustments on it somewhere else down the line. So I just think teams are not thrilled about doing it. Even when Montreal made the offer sheet to Sebastian Aho of the Hurricanes this summer, I mean, it wasn't like a blow it away kind of an offer. It was something that Carolina could easily do, and they did. And they did it quickly. It didn't really put them in the pickle or anything, except maybe they had to start paying that money out a little bit quicker than they anticipated. But other than that, it wasn't that big of a damaging blow. And I really think that is the biggest thing with a lot of GMs is they're afraid if they do it to somebody, then somebody's going to do it to them. You know, if I'm nice about it and I don't be the bad guy, if I don't screw somebody over, then nobody's going to screw me over. And I think that's just part of what this sport is. It's part of what makes it great. It's part of what makes it maddening at times, if you ask me. But the fact is, someday there will be some ruthless guy, and he won't care about what anybody else thinks, and he's going to worry about getting the player for himself. And if he can't get the player for himself, then he's going to force another team into a corner. It's going to happen. It is absolutely going to happen. But when it's going to happen, I don't know. But then the other thing you forget about is that other team can match that right away too, and maybe the player doesn't want to come to you. That's another thing you have to gauge. Mitch Marner, for every indication was he wanted to stay in Toronto. He's from Toronto. He wanted to stay in Toronto. So you can get a humongous deal, and maybe you still don't want to go. Now, if your team can't match it, then that's a whole other thing. But you know, if the player wants to stay where they are, and if the team can handle it under the cap, they're just going to match it, and you're never going to get the guy anyway. And then maybe you're going to create some ill will. Maybe that's a team that you would like to trade with later in the season. They have something that would help you, and you're not in the same division or whatever, and you can't get it done because you ticked them off over the other thing. So that's the, again, whether it's right or wrong, that's the kind of stuff that goes on. And as I said, someday, some guy's going to come through and say, I don't care. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I'm just going to do it. But until that time, you'll have what you have. But guess what? It's evolving all the time. Look at the money these guys are making on their second contracts now. And, whether it's taking a couple-year bridge deal like Werenski, whether it's taking a longer deal like Marner, I mean, they're getting big money. The times they are changing. There's no question about that. But they're really good players. The league is young. The league is fast. The league is good. And these players are getting their money. So it'll be interesting to watch because it's all going to I'm sure it's going to change further. There's no question about that. It's how it is, and it's how it's going to be. And speaking of that, I'm going to leave you with this. The NHL Players Association originally had a deadline to decide whether or not to opt out of the current collective bargaining agreement with the NHL yesterday. They have decided to push that back. There was a clause in the CBA that allowed the Players Association to push the deadline to today because the original deadline fell on a Sunday. So they have until today. Now, the owners in late August opted not to reopen the collective bargaining agreement, which right now runs through 2021-22. And the league is very open about the fact that not only do they not want to reopen, but they are negotiating with the Players Association to maybe even lengthen the deal that they have. So there's a lot of dialogue that has gone on, but not enough dialogue that anything has become set in stone. But today is a big day because today is that deadline for the NHLPA. So the Blue Jackets getting back to practice in training camp practice today. at the Ohio Health Ice House. They'll be on the ice at Nationwide Arena tomorrow night to take on the Buffalo Sabres, 7 o'clock game, and a game you will be able to hear on 97.1 The Fan and the Blue Jackets radio network tomorrow. So that's the deal for tomorrow night. Then, of course, Jody Shelley and I have the Inside Edge on Wednesday. You can carry that through, and if you missed the show, you can catch up in a podcast form on Thursday. And the Blue Jackets are going to be back on the road Thursday in Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins. So it's great to be back. It's great to get your questions and your feedback, and we'll do it on Mondays through training camp, the Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30. And I've got to tell you, it's brought to you by Telhio Credit Union once again this year, the great folks over at Telhio. Just go online to telhio.org, find out about all the services they have, checking accounts, savings accounts, whether it's personal, whether it's business, they've got it all. It's all right there at your fingertips. All you have to do is log on to telhio.org. So that's going to do it for the first show of this 2019-2020 training camp. Until next time, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.